agree with the EEOC. One, how did they not know that it was a Muslim attire? And, you know, they had said that they would hire her and then they didn't, so they went back on their word. So this holds them accountable for their actions.
I think that the EEOC, I would side with them and think that it was an intentional discrimination because of the fact that they correctly assumed she was Muslim. I mean, they could have just been like, oh, like maybe, like, because of the fact that they didn't hire her because of the headscarf, it's like, you guys were aware that it's something she probably wears daily. Had it been like, just like something she was wearing that day, like they wouldn't have had, but it's like they correctly assumed like, she's Muslim, like she probably wears this every day and that's not gonna work for us. I said with the EEOC because I think that it was an intentional discrimination.
I agree with the EEOC that it was totally intentional. This happened in 2014, but aren't we all about like diversity and like getting out there? But I guess Abercrombie's still stuck in the 90s. They're not with the times at all. No. I'm appalled at this whole thing. I'm so mad.
Hey, you need to stop crying. I don't feel like they did it because she was Muslim. I think they kind of did it more for like a dress code thing. That's unintentional.
I think the EEOC is right. Because the manager assumed and was correct about that assumption, like, I mean, it's pretty safe to say that everyone else would assume the same. So, like, I don't know, I just feel like that's obvious.
I'm a Supreme Court justice. I gotta look the part. I would side with the EEOC, mostly because the silent clause that you mentioned of the Title VII Discrimination 1864 Act. So the logic that I believe that the Abercrombie and Company is trying to use is that they did not know of such religious, practices or the reasons for such a decision, and they assumed that she was, maybe the logic would be they would use the logic that they were, she didn't disclose that this was for religious reasons. If I'm a blind landlord and I know that a person is black, and I say that you cannot live in my apartment building, that would obviously be discrimination. The reason I use the thought exercise of the blind person is that if the blind landlord assumes that the person is black, it disbars them from living residency at the apartment building or the condo or whatever. That would be an obvious. I think more people would be inclined to say that was obvious discrimination rather than like policy discrimination. And so yes, again, I would side with the EEOC on record too. It's 2014 was obviously a more tenuous time in terms of Muslim American relationships. I would imagine that the underlying logic of the district or the store manager, the regional district manager could not be not part of the situation. That's certainly not the reason why I would make this decision. Ignorance of an issue is not an excuse for discrimination.
I would rule with Abercrombie. I think if you just assume anything about anyone, then that is going to cause problems. I think reasonably you'd have to side with Abercrombie. You couldn't say 100% to the regional guy or whatever that she definitely was a Muslim, then that would be unintentional, I would say.
I feel like I know what I think. I would agree with the EEOC in that it was intentional discrimination just because of previous laws, like you mentioned, the Title VII Act. You don't have to know someone's religion to discriminate against them. And because you said Heather accurately guessed her religion, and I mean, I think, at least in my opinion, most people wear headscarves for religious reasons. I don't know anyone who wears like the hijabi style of headscarf for a non-religious reason or for other reasons. So yeah, for that I would side with the EEOC.